Hello, and welcome to another one of my nagging thoughts. This week is going to be quite a bit different. I created my nagging thoughts to really critically analyze a lot of the theology and doctrine that is promoted out there widely among Christians. And when I tried to get my book published, of course, Christians didn't want to have anything to do with it because not only am I a nobody with no credentials or pedigree to speak on these topics, but I am challenging the establishment. I am not providing a list of 7 ways to fix your marriage and, how to be happy and live happily ever after, which is the type of book that sells in this domain. I am challenging a lot of the best-selling books that are out there. And because that is a niche topic, the secular people don't want to have anything to do with it either. And essentially, this getting a book published really is a business endeavor. And that is why I turned to the internet to try to create my own audience. This is why I use YouTube as my driver, which is syndicated and goes into many other platforms, into podcast format, etc. I am doing this to build an audience to hopefully get my book published, which I've even tried to convert into articles to get published in article format and still have not been able to make any success. So all of my nagging thoughts are a great investment of my time and my money, because nobody else believes in me. I believe in myself. I've been investing in promoting my content in order to make my voice available to those that are interested in these topics. But when I started speaking against the transformed wife, I got systematically deplatformed by GodTube without any discussion or warning. And now even Google Ads is telling me that I'm not allowed to promote that content on their website because it violates their policy. Specifically, they're accusing me of having adult content. What I'm refuting when I'm talking about the transformed wife are ideas and doctrines and theology that, I will give it the benefit of the doubt, is inadvertently promoting temple prostitution for the one true living God, as well as just straight up prostitution in idolatry of a husband. And having to articulate these things and break down these arguments in a very specific manner and using that type of language is what Google Ads is saying is not appropriate. This is absolutely absurd because they do have the ability to target different demographics. So I deselected the G-rated category so that this content would not be targeting anybody who is younger than a teenager. This is the same principle that applies to Hollywood when they have G-rated, PG-13, R-rated, etc. And here is where the real hypocrisy comes from. And I have to tell you, being raised in very liberal areas, I was trained to have a cultural disdain for the uber religious. And I have to tell you that having grown up in that context, I'm convinced, and I'm so just sure to my core that the only thing that is more hypocritically sanctimonious than the ultra religious fundamentalists are the ultra irreligious fascists that desire absolute concentration of power and authority to impose culture on a larger audience. And it just absolutely drives me crazy. So I want to just give you a couple of examples of the absolute selective, discriminatory enforcement of these policies by large platforms, global platforms such as Google Ads and YouTube. And I don't know, then I'll just wrap it up. That's really all I want to talk about this week. So the 2 examples that I want to give you guys is that while Google Ads suddenly is more Puritan than the Puritans in saying that I can't even use the word sex, prostitute, I forgot what else was offensive to them, but these things were inappropriate for their platform, and therefore I'm not allowed to even give them money to make my content available to people who are interested in it, which, by the way, is a whole nother level of discrimination. So I'm not even complaining about being shadow banned and having their discriminatory content algorithms steer people to different domains of thought. I'm actually paying out of my own pocket to get my voice available to be heard to those who are interested, with a ad that appears on the side of YouTube that you would click on. I don't pay for the forced visual ads. I think that I hate those, and I hate being forced into receiving content. So I pay for the display ads, or I forget the term that they use. But in any case, so they're telling me that my content is too dirty for their platform. And yet I just simply clicked on what is their top trending. And currently one of their top trends is a video by Rico Nasties. This is what it's called: Rico Nasties 2019 XXL Freshman Freestyle. I got 18 seconds into this video before I heard multiple swear words, including the F-bomb and the N-word. And not only does this video have well over 500,000 views in one day, but it's monetized. So advertisers are not afraid to be associated with quote unquote hate speech, quote unquote adult content, and offensive material if it comes from either a deep pocket or the right type of person. So the people with power are able to engage in these types of discussions and words and produce this type of content. But if you are a person without power, you shall remain without power, and we will enforce policies to make sure that that remains the case. Another example of this that really bothers me, really that is more specific to this notion of adult content, is this film that was extremely offensive to me. I went with my mom to go see Red Sparrow thinking it was a female spy movie. And when we watched it, it turned out to be more of a soft porn movie. And I was absolutely horrified that we were forced to see this on the big screen. As a side note, I'm also really personally disappointed with Jennifer Lawrence for portraying herself in such a manner, in such a degrading manner on the big screen, especially after how she responded to Seth MacFarlane's opening bit on the 85th annual Oscar Awards, where he's saying, "We saw your boobs," and he specifically noted that they hadn't seen hers, and she went like this to indicate that that was an achievement, that she hadn't allowed the Hollywood elite to exploit her in such a way. So this went far beyond even just a topless scene. It was really, really graphic. And yet, YouTube has steered well over 29 million people towards this video. And it is a money maker. And they are able to promote this vile content on their website. So again, they have very discriminatory enforcement policies on who can say what and who can make money saying what. And it is really disgusting. The future generations the younger generations, I should say, have really been trained to think that free speech is tantamount to hate speech and therefore is nothing worth protecting. But I have to tell you that they have, when you set up these types of subjective rules, it's the power and the authority source that gets to determine whose voices get to be heard and whose are quote unquote inappropriate or quote unquote hate speech. And it's going to it's going to have power favors the powerful, as it says in Ecclesiastes, and it is just an enforcement of that, and it is going to make dissenting voices even harder and harder to be heard until absolute ideological conformity is achieved, and the group thinking that is described in George Orwell's book 1984 is materialized, and it is absolutely upsetting and disturbing. I'm not quite sure what can be done about it. I've done everything I can to work around these growing fascist trends, and I'm not quite sure what can be done. So, if you do hear this video, if you do care about free speech, even if you hate absolutely everything else I've said, let me know that you care about these things, and let me know if you have any ideas on anything else that can be done to raise voices of dissent, even if you disagree, because I think humanity gets better as iron sharpens iron, as we actually listen to each other, as we actually have the maturity to not be afraid to hear an opposing viewpoint. I think it's an incredibly childish response to say, I don't like what you're saying. Let's silence it and let's suppress it and let's just hear me talk. I think that's very immature, and I would like to see less censorship and more discussion. So anyway, I'm rambling mostly because I am on tilt this week. This really upsets me. So I really do appreciate your time very, very much. I hope you have a great week, and I hope that you raise your voices to God and for His name's sake and His glory. And I pray these things in the name of Jesus. And I hope you have a great week. God bless. Bye.